Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Access City Council. I'm your host, City of Las Vegas Communications Director David Riggleman. We're excited to have with us today City Councilwoman Nancy Brune, who, as you know, represents Ward 6. Councilwoman, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
You're getting to be an old veteran of this show. You've been in office just since December, but here you are again on Access. Great to have you back.
You haven't scared me away.
You've done great. Hit the ground running. You know Ward 6 well. It's your stomping ground out there in the great northwest area of the valley. For those of you out there not exactly sure where Ward 6 is located, well, don't worry. We're going to show you right there on the map. Again, it's right at the top of the valley. If you live in that area or work in that area, then, of course, you are in the city limits of the city of Las Vegas. And if you are a resident out there since last December, you have been represented on the city council by Nancy Brune. You've been very, very busy since you came into office. One of the things that's very interesting is that you have worked very hard to call awareness to issues in the community that have become prominent and sometimes a problem. And one of the things, this is a discussion that I even was not fully aware of, but it's the fentanyl situation here in Las Vegas. And we hear about overdoses, we hear about some of the terrible things that go on with fentanyl, but I didn't realize the problem was as widespread as apparently as it's become.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a crisis, and I was fortunate to attend last week a conference in Henderson. It was a summit on the fentanyl crisis and really just raising awareness and trying to figure out what we can all do. It really has reached epidemic proportions both here but also nationally. And just, by way of background, fentanyl is a synthetic or man-made opioid, and it is very potent. And when I say potent, it can be 80 to 100 times more potent than morphine. And what makes it really dangerous is just because it's so potent, just a little bit can kill you. And so at the summit that I attended, somebody demonstrated that the amount of fentanyl powder that you could put on the tip of a pencil can kill you.
Really?
Yes.
And then, Councilwoman, fentanyl is getting mixed in with all kinds of other drugs.
Correct. I mean, that's the other part of the danger is it's being mixed in with things like Percocet or, even heroin. And people don't realize that the supplier has mixed it, and so they take it thinking they're taking a normal dose of whatever. And with the fentanyl being so potent, it's you end up overdosing.
It's alarming, and I think the statistics that go along with it, like I say, I think we're all aware that there's an issue with fentanyl out there. We've certainly heard a lot about it, but to the extent that it's now escalated, especially the number of deaths that we've seen, is especially frightening.
Yeah, we've seen across the state a 30% increase in overdose deaths between 2019 and 2020. And deaths among younger people have more than doubled. So it's really affecting young people in particular. In Clark County, deaths increased from about 445 in 2019 to over 600 in 2021.
Wow. And people are taking this, again, they're not sure exactly what they're taking, but the fentanyl is being mixed in there. Now, why are these dealers that are pushing this onto the street, what's the advantage of putting fentanyl in something? Why would you do that?
It's highly addictive, actually, and so for them, then and the high lasts longer. And so, from a dealer perspective, right, they know that the person who's taking this is going to need more, and then as your tolerance increases, right, you just keep coming back for more. What's interesting is I learned this at the summit. As you know, I think you've probably talked about this with some of the other council members. The problem of homelessness has really increased both here in Southern Nevada, but also across the country. And what we learned at the summit is that there is a correlation with the rise of homelessness and the rise of people addicted to fentanyl.
Isn't that something?
And so to solve for the homelessness that we have, downtown in different parts of Las Vegas, we really do need to solve for the drug addicted population, make sure we've got treatment and services focusing on drug rehab.
Councilwoman, is this similar to methamphetamine, where people can get addicted really after one or two uses and just be because it's so potent?
I think so. That's my understanding, but I'm sure our sergeant.
Yeah, we have a guest coming on that's going to tell us more about what law enforcement's doing. Councilwoman, I think too the statistics really that struck me as well is this runs the gamut of age, race, area of town. It doesn't matter. It's not unique to any one group or location at all.
Correct. If you look at the fentanyl deaths from 2018 to 2022, you'll see that the number of deaths has just been increasing. And I think the map will show, those areas that are red is hot, where there have been a higher number of fentanyl deaths, and you'll see that all of the zip codes are affected. Out in Ward 6 too. So truly the entire region is in crisis, and no zip code or neighborhood is left unaffected.
No ethnic background either. It doesn't
Correct.
seem to matter. It runs across all demographics.
Yep.
As far as Ward 6, Councilwoman, I know that everyone is working very hard to raise awareness on this situation. I think that the question I'd have is, do you think there's been enough education out there right now to warn people about what's going on with this drug?
I don't think there has been, and I think that's the goal of the summit that the city of Henderson put on, and they've actually spent some of their funds, the opioid settlement funds, to invest in social media campaigns to touch people on, YouTube media, but both print media and in the schools, and they're airing these social media campaigns to raise awareness, to your point, among parents and young people.
And Ward 6, just your ward too, just affected like every other here in the Valley as well.
Yep. Yep. So we'll be hopefully getting some messages out to our young people too, especially during the summertime. I think when young people are hanging out with their friends, and parents aren't as present because they're not on top of them with the schoolwork. So really trying to make sure kids do understand the danger. And one of the things that they showed us at the summit is that one of the reasons it's being so marketed so effectively with kids is that it looks like candy. It looks like those Pez candies that you buy in the store. And so just again, raising awareness among kids. If you don't know, if you're not sort of just be aware of if someone asks you to
try this.
Just
try this. Give it a shot.
Take a hit of a joint or something. You don't know that it can't be, that it wasn't laced with fentanyl, and so just say no. Just stay away.
Wow, really scary. Well, Councilwoman, again, you had mentioned this earlier. We're going to have a special guest on, and at this point, we need to take a short break. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by that special guest from the Metropolitan Police Department. He's going to talk to us about some of the efforts law enforcement is undertaking and some of the things that parents and young people should know as it comes to fentanyl, and that's next. So don't miss this discussion. Thanks so much.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
Welcome back, everyone. We're now joined by Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Sergeant Matt Kovacich as we discuss the fentanyl crisis in our nation and right here in this community. Thanks again, Sergeant, so much for being here. Councilwoman, I know you're excited to have Matt on. Matt, give us a little bit of background real quick. Your job with Metro basically is to do what?
So actually, I oversee our Office of Community Engagement that encompasses our behavioral health unit, our low-level drug diversion programs, our crisis intervention team, as well as our youth outreach and intervention programs.
Councilwoman, I know you were very excited to have Matt on the show because, as we've been discussing on this program, the fentanyl crisis is probably worse than most people could ever imagine.
Yeah.
It is worse.
It is. And just to give one more statistics, of the 1,400 people in Clark County that have died from opioid-related deaths, almost half, or 46%, have been from fentanyl. Wow. So it's really gripping our valley and our community.
You know, Matt, let me ask you that. We know that Narcan can be an antidote for an opioid. Does Narcan work on fentanyl? If someone has a fentanyl overdose, will a shot of Narcan even help them?
It does, but we've seen sometimes where you need more than one dosage. There's multiple body cam videos out there where the officers are administering, 2, 3, 4 doses, just because of the potency of what some of these individuals are taking.
Matt, Councilwoman and I have been discussing this. Give us a perspective on what law enforcement is trying to do to stem this tide, which has really become critical here.
A lot of our stuff, is educating the public. We, as an agency, we have obviously our narcotics team that goes out. They have their own youth intervention through the high schools and middle schools,
right.
just to educate some of the kids on, like we spoke about, is one pill can kill. If the kids understand that, if they're not they don't know where that medicine or drugs, pill, whatever it is coming from, then they shouldn't be taking it. So a lot of our approach is educating people. Obviously, the byproduct of policing is the enforcement arm, but the more people realize how dangerous fentanyl and how dangerous these pills can be, or narcotics in general, the better we can combat this epidemic.
Yeah, this isn't something that you're potentially going to bounce back from. As you said, one dose of this, Councilwoman had mentioned earlier, such a small amount of fentanyl can kill you. If that's in whatever you're taking, it's going to be very tragic. So. And then, Matt, I assume, too, that law enforcement is also working hard to find the people who are trafficking this into the country as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, there's different approaches. You have to have the law enforcement, the enforcement arm of it, as well as the education. There's only so much we can do as an agency to try and stop everything that's coming in here. Vegas itself is on its own little island, so everything is brought in pretty much. So it's a difficult task as our agency has seen. And
then also too, Matt, I think that you're talking about educating. We've talked about educating the young people. Of course, it seems like it runs the gamut of people who might be taking this, educating people in general. But for parents, Councilwoman, you talked about you're the parent of young, of teenage aged kids. Obviously, there's some education that needs to take place for the parents as well. And Matt, what advice do you have for parents like Councilwoman Brune?
Well, I myself am a parent. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 18, or soon to be 18, fixing to graduate high school. So, I've seen it firsthand where, a lot of the kids these days just don't understand the severity of some of their decisions. But as a parent, your number one thing is you have to be engaged. You have to talk to your kids and be there for them and understand, the struggles and trials and tribulations that they're going through, as well as, they need to be educated and taught of the dangers, the inherent dangers that are out there.
Matt, talk again about what programs exist to help with all of this, to help educate the kids, the parents, and just to keep the community safer.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about one of our programs that we oversee at Metro is our LVMA program. Essentially, we partner with the 8th Judicial Court. We take, it's not for juveniles, but we take young adults from 18. Our oldest that's in the program right now is 81. And we take them, and it's a 9 to 12 month process that gets individuals that have been habitual drug users, low-level drug offenders. Instead of arresting them and keep putting them in the system, we give them the means and ways to become active members of society. So some people graduate in 9 months. Some people, it might take them 15, 18 months. But we've seen a very successful rate of those that graduate. In fact, I spoke about it in Henderson last week, and it's actually so successful that only 1.25% of our participants have recidivized, have been rearrested, reoffended, reused.
Amazing.
So if it was, if I had a magic wand, I would love to be able to trickle that down into the youth. But in the meantime, like I said, we go back to the educating aspect of hopefully preventing them from starting to use any kind of substance before it becomes a habitual problem later on in life.
Councilman, I know you were impressed by some of the stats that Matt just talked about, that ability to kind of keep people from falling back into the system when you were at the summit. What other points did you hear there that you think law enforcement could help with, or that what were some takeaways?
Well, and I think that was just the first of many conversations. And what I love about that example is all of the jurisdictions right now are receiving opioid settlement funds, and that's the money that the drug manufacturers who manufacture these opioids now are giving to the jurisdictions, because they realize that, you know, an overdose and folks addicted really are taxing the social service system, and so trying to, you know, sort of make amends for the incredible destruction that this has caused in some cities. And so that's a great example of a program that hopefully we may want to, you know, or will choose to fund, and expanding it to young people, something that we could do with our opioid settlement fund money. So that's really exciting. And we've already seen that it's had a great effect with older people.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
So we should talk.
The impact there has been phenomenal. What do you think, Matt, connects to keep people? What are they hearing that turns them around? That's an amazing success rate. Is it just the message, period, about how deadly this can be, or what do you think?
I think it's a mixture of both. You know, it's you give someone a chance to make a choice to make their life better. If someone's been a chronic user of the system, you know, been arrested and released without any kind of help or any kind of avenue of becoming clean and sober, you know, just by giving them that one chance, somebody might have not have ever given that to them before, or they did, and they just, at that point in their life, they just chose not to go down that path. So we see a lot of times when that persistent follow-up, continual engagement with them, you see that the people change. You know, they want to get better, and they just don't know how sometimes, and we guide them along the way.
Yeah. I think to your point as well, with young people, with the community in general, if you give them the facts about how dangerous fentanyl is, or the use of drugs that like you're saying, where you don't know where this came from, it could be the last thing you ever do if you're not careful.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too we heard at the summit is that one of the reasons why youth are so vulnerable is that they're feeling so isolated post, you know, pandemic, and so trying to find a way to engage them and give them alternatives and really just sort of pull them out of being, you know, alone is really important. So trying to think about youth programs and sports programs, right, that can sort of connect those young people, because if they're engaged and connected, they may be less likely to, you know.
It's a great point. I think we talked about that in our social media conversation prior to recording this show. You talked a little bit about that, Matt, the programs where kids can get involved, give them something to do, especially during the summer months that are coming up here, where the kids aren't going to be in school, and if they feel isolated, they might decide to turn to something not so safe.
Yeah, that's one of the things that my unit actually specializes in, that we strive to get kids engaged, whether, you know, they're sports inclined. We have numerous sports activities, camps, programs that they can get involved in. Well, let's face it, some kids aren't good at sports, so you know, some avenues is music, some is dancing.
Good point. Right.
You know, there's no one-stop shop or one-size-fits-all approach to it. So that's what my unit is trying to broaden ourselves and try and get as many community partners involved, because we ourselves as an agency, we will never be able to fix the issue without the support of you know, the city, the county, private entities.
So true.
You know, it's a systematic problem and a community problem, and we rely on, you know, programs like this to help us get our message out.
Excellent. Matt, we have about a minute left with you. It's been a great discussion, fascinating discussion, very eye-opening. Anything else you'd like to add before we have to say goodbye?
As far as like parenting goes, one of the things that we see a lot is kids are so involved in social media these days. You know, and that's how they're buying and selling narcotics, whether it's you know, fentanyl laced, or maybe they don't even know if it's fentanyl laced. But you know, as a parent, you want to make sure that you're being involved in your child's life, but then monitoring their social media. because that same social media that the parent might be monitoring or swiping left or whatever and watching could be the same social media that your kid is buying illicit drugs that potentially could be laced with fentanyl from.
Yeah. Great advice. Matt Kovacich, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Great information. Councilwoman, great idea to have him. So glad you went to the summit, and so glad that you brought Matt onto the program today. Learned a lot. So, well, we're going to take a short break, everyone, but when we come back, we'll tell you about some great events that are coming up in Ward 6 that you want to put on your calendar for sure. So please stay with us.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back once again. We have a few events that we'd like to tell you about that are coming up in Ward 6 over the next few weeks. And Councilwoman, I love the first thing. It's a pet
Parade.
You get it? And so tell us about this. What's the story with this?
So actually, I'm doing this in response to a couple of neighbors who said they had done this before the pandemic and loved it and wanted to see it. I mean, it wasn't called Pet Parade.
No, because that's
back
much more
then.
creative.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the idea is just to bring neighbors out. People love their pets, and to have neighbors come out and dress up their pets in funny, crazy costumes. And we'll be giving out prizes for cutest costume.
Cool.
Yeah, so it'll be a lot of fun. And I think the weather hasn't gotten too hot yet, so it'll be nice.
Very
From
nice.
9 to 11.
So yeah, on Saturday, May 20th, there's the information from 9 to 11, Centennial Hills Park. Now, Councilwoman, I got to ask you this. Is this just for puppies and dogs, or?
It is, yes.
Okay, well, cat owners will get you later. I'll get you on the flip-flop next time around.
Well, I will say we have lots of nonprofit rescues who will be there.
Very good.
And that
Serious
will be like
business too, yeah.
cats or iguanas, whatever. So a lot of the vendors will be representing all of our pets.
Excellent.
Furry and scaly alike.
Exactly, and the idea is to help find homes for all these animals then too. Yeah. So our Paw Parade coming up. Now we know that some of you will see this after the fact, because the show airs over the week, but that's okay because I got a feeling this is going to be very popular.
It'll be back, yeah.
Yeah, and going to be back. Yeah. I recall that we did something like this prior to the pandemic, and so I'm glad you brought it back.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So it'd be exciting. And then also very cool, you have a small business breakfast coming up May 24th.
Yes, it'll be our first. The goal is to do this quarterly, so we've invited all of our Ward 6 businesses, and we'll bring them together to have them connect with each other. And we'll also be sharing out information from our city's economic development department. I mean, as you know, David, we have a lot of great stuff happening in the city, and I'm not sure it always gets out to our neighbors. And so I want the department to come out and just share all the amazing things that are happening that maybe some of my Ward 6 businesses can get plugged into.
Absolutely, and Councilwoman, that's a great point because Las Vegas is far more than just a gaming, a tourism destination. Certainly that's our major industry, but we are burgeoning in so many other things, tech and everything else.
Yep.
So it's a great opportunity, to Councilwoman's point, to come out there, learn, kind of hear about what's going on in your business. There may be some good synergy with what these companies may be able to offer and what you could offer them. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
So that's going to be May 24th. We hope people take advantage, put that on your calendar. Breakfast is free that day?
Yes,
Whoa.
it is,
So
yes.
There you go. You cannot beat that. Get a great meal and great information. And then I love this too. You've got your Bocaditos with Brune on June 8th.
Yes.
just a casual.
It's our
meet and
monthly
greet. Yeah.
casual conversation with neighbors, and I love it because each month neighbors bring a different set of concerns. For the last couple of
Right.
meetings, we've talked a lot about pickleball.
That's right.
But we'll also
That's
talk
right.
about zoning and water and crime, and so it's a great way to really find out and hear from the neighbors directly what is top of mind to them.
Again, folks, that's going to be Thursday, June 8th, 9 to noon, out of the Centennial Hills Community Center and YMCA there on North Buffalo. And I got to tell you, Councilwoman is a new council member, but she spends a lot of time listening to the folks. You listen to everybody's concern and you stay for the duration to hear what people have to say. So if you've got an issue, you've got a concern, and you live in Ward 6, she is going to hear you because she's going to make it her point to listen. So, Councilwoman, good stuff. What have you heard so far at those? What are some of the common community concerns? Traffic, pickleball.
Traffic,
it was
yes,
the
and we
noise from
actually, just upkeep of the roads. It's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing how many
yeah.
people come out and ask, about, or told me that there are weeds in a common area.
Right,
And so,
yeah.
it sounds, what I love about it is it sounds very simple, but it shows that neighbors really do care about the communities in which they live, and we just want to, everybody to be happy and feel a real connection and pride about their neighborhood. So I love actually addressing those concerns. It's really, it's as important as connecting folks to social services
It
or
sure is.
worrying about crime and trying to address that.
And I think, too, people love to have the opportunity to have access to their elected officials, be able to do it, especially in a casual setting like that. And you have food there, too.
Yes.
So you can't
Lots
beat
of
that
food.
there. Right. And
Food
it is
makes
also,
everything better.
Exactly. And it is also free. So, again, you'll have an opportunity to get some great information and connect with neighbors. I think that's one of the things that's really interesting,
Yes,
too. Is
yeah, it's been great to see, neighbors come in, they'll
That's
meet each
right.
other, and they'll exchange, phone numbers.
right.
And that's really, one of the things I wanted to do when I ran is just build our community and connect people. I want Ward 6 to be the neighborhood that people take care of each other.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this, when you have an event, you usually get tremendous turnout. People love to participate.
Yep. We just showed a movie in the park.
Yeah.
We had over 200 people and just heard that people really thought it was special and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was Top Gun Maverick,
yes,
right?
yeah.
So, very good. Good choice for a movie. Everybody's apparently really liked that one. So, well, Councilwoman, we are just about out of time here, so we want to tell everybody out there before we have to say goodbye to you that we always want to hear from you. So if there's something you'd like to share with Councilwoman Brune, you can find her on Facebook and Twitter. She does a lot of social media. You can also contact her by calling the office, 702-229-6405. You can send her an email. Her address is nbrune@lasvegasnevada.gov, and she or one of her great staff will get right back to you. So you do have a great team.
We have a
got
great
Chance,
team.
got Mateo, you got Daniel.
Yep.
They do a great job.
Yep.
So and you're doing a
I've
pretty,
heard
pretty
nothing
good
but
job
great
yourself.
things about my
Yeah.
team, so I'm excited.
They're very responsive. They're all three great guys. Work very hard, and they're committed to making sure whatever people's needs are that they're gonna either send them to the right place if it's not a City of Las Vegas issue, or they're gonna make sure that the right department gets connected. So. Well, great job, Councilwoman. We'll have you back in 6 weeks with another update
see you
from Ward
then.
6. Yeah, we'll talk about some other issues. The fentanyl discussion, really eye-opening today. I'm so glad that you brought that forward. I think we all, like I say, we all knew that there was an issue with fentanyl in the community and that it can be deadly, but I don't think any of us realized the magnitude of the problem.
And I think as a parent, right, the fact that younger people really are susceptible because, they don't always look or think about where things come from, and a lot of times it looks just like candy, and so we just need to stay on top as parents.
Great advice, great advice. We'll see you next time,
Yes.
Councilwoman. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. Our next Access City Council show begins airing on May 25th with Ward 1 City Councilman Brian Knudsen. You can catch all of our KCLV shows on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire, and watch for our QR code in the closing credits of this show to subscribe to our newsletter. Also, don't forget, you can watch us live on the internet at kclv.tv. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time around.